Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider Cast, episode 41. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis.
It's time for some more board game banter.
Well, a little bit of that, and usually a lot of shite.
Well, yeah, there is that as well, yeah.
We're hideously unprepared for this one, aren't we, boys? Like, even more than normal.
Every time we start, I just don't feel as if we get into the rhythm until like 3 minutes in. We do the intro, and then all of a sudden it just dies.
I thought you were going to say 3 minutes before the end, then.
No. We peak about 10 minutes in, and then we drop off.
A cliff.
Very quickly.
Get very excited about all the stuff we're going to talk about, and then remember that we've actually got to talk about it.
Well, it's usually more that we've realised we've overrun and talked bollocks for an hour and a half, and we really should stick to about at least an hour.
Yes, if not for put my teeth in, if nothing but for Steve's sanity.
Mm.
Yes, indeed. Well, the other thing as well is we seem to have all been, as Andy puts it, busy as fudge. Is that right? Or busy as duck?
Something like
Something along those lines, yes.
Yes.
Have you got
That's
the air horn
true.
ready?
I've always got the air horn ready for you
Hooray!
two.
Do you know what? I've been listening back to the last two podcasts. John swears more than I do these days.
Yes, he is. It's John Foulmouth Cage, we'll be calling him.
It's a fair cop.
Right, clearly I need to do something to rectify my reputation.
Do you know what? If you don't like it, you can go off.
Dear.
Right, the bar's now been set.
It's been one of those days, okay?
It most certainly has. John and I spent 2 hours in the same room together today discussing
Yeah.
process flow. That was exciting.
God.
Believe it or not, that was the highlight of my day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good grief.
That's not good.
So, let's talk about something more fun. Let's talk about some board gamey stuff.
I think we should talk about how big John is. Or rather, how big John's is. There we go. Let's get it right.
Yeah. So I was listening to the Secret Cabal just this afternoon, in fact, and they were talking about how they manage their board game collections and all that sort of stuff, and how many board games they've actually got in their collections, because one of them, Chris, was going to cull his collection. He's getting rid of approximately 150 games, which brings his collection down from... Which brings his collection down from 250 to a much more reasonable 100 games. And at this point,
he giving them away at a discount?
I literally did exactly the same thing as you, Andy. I whistled, and I thought, crikey, that is a lot of board games. And I was mentally counting them up. I think I've probably got about 50. Andy, how many have you got?
I think about 102, and that's curiously precise, according to Board Game. My geek collection, although I haven't been on there for a while, so I've just updated it very marginally now. 102, I think, give or take, 2 or 3. And although on top of that, I've got 58 expansions.
That's bonkers. But that does put you in the same sorts of leagues as one of the founders of the Secret Cabal. Steve, how many have you got?
So, according to Board Game Geek, according to Board Game Geek, it's 188. But I think that's wrong. I actually think it's a little bit less than that. It depends what you count them. Like, for instance, Smash Up counts as 3 games according to that, because you've got Smash Up and you've got like several expandalones, standalone expansions. So I actually think the real number I would class is around about 175.
That's so much better.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of games. But
It's still a lot of games. I mean, somebody said the other week on Twitter, how many games do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, if you played like one game in your collection every week, you're looking at 3 to 4 years to play for every single game in my collection at the moment. And that's a terrifying thought.
well,
Clearly, you just need to play more games.
That's quite terrifying for you. And Andy's right, you should play more games. But have a guess how many Jamie from the Secret Cabal has got in his collection. Bearing in mind, it's now his pretty much full-time job running the Secret Cabal, editing and board gaming collection.
836.
I was going to say, I seem to remember it was around about the 800 to 1,000 mark.
It is around about the 800 mark. 800 board games. They're in his basement. He was saying, like, I've got some space for some more, but, I could probably do with culling a few. And I sat there thinking, culling a few? A few?
You could run 4 conventions with that.
Yeah.
How would you even consider what to play? Like, right, I want to play a board game tonight. 800 to decide from. My God.
He did say just that. It's extremely difficult for him to work out, like in an evening, he's got to balance up who's coming round, how many players he's got. These guys won't play these games, and those guys won't play these games. But even so, like 800 games, that's bonkers.
Impressive, though. Clearly, the thing is, the way my mind works, and we all know it's a bit weird, that just says one final push to get to 1,000.
I think they'd appreciate that.
Excellent. They just need to try harder.
Yeah.
And looking behind Steve's head, his Kallax is pretty empty. That needs filling, Mr. Tudor. There's 25 games to get to 200.
That's full. That's a CD shelf, pal.
It's just far away.
Yes. It's close. It's a CD shelf, just quite close.
Oh, that's why. You know, because I went round the other night to play one of the games we'll talk about later on. But you showed me the room, and I did comment that, oh my God, your room looks so much smaller than it does on camera. And that's why, because I assumed the thing behind your head is a Kallax and is therefore miles behind you. Holy shit, this room's massive. No, it's a small box room surrounded by CDs. Oh, that makes more sense.
No, but there is a lesson there. You could replace the CD shelves with another Kallax, like a single one.
Mm.
I could, but I'm under strict orders that the CDs, if kept, must be kept in this room and no other room in the house.
Just digitise them. Problem solved.
Yeah.
See, right, now this is the thing, and your board game collection mentality is the same thing. That CD collection is something I've collected since I was like about 12 years old. And it tells a story, in my view, of like music. And I mean, okay, I stopped buying CDs around about 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. But I don't want to get rid of it because it's got this kind of mystique to it, and it is all digitized. I remember spending like 6 weeks just digitizing the entire lot. But I didn't want to throw away the CDs because I kept also thinking, well, what if in 5 years' time I decide this bitrate isn't good enough and want to redigitize them?
Oh my God.
I can see his point though, because I agree with you actually, because I've still got my CDs in a bag in the cupboard. Because yeah, I've got literally like hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of MP3s on my hard drive. So I've got more than my CD collection, most of which is digitized, but not all of it. But annoyingly, it's not the start of my CD collection, because I had a much bigger a comparable CD collection when I was at uni, but some scrote broke into my flat in my 4th year and robbed them all.
Cheeky bastard.
Exactly. So they robbed all the singles as well. And so the insurance company, I mean, they replaced a lot of them. And I also got my pick of new music at the time, which was nice. But they couldn't replace all the singles, which is really annoying because I had loads of singles from Iron Maiden, Robert Miles, which I really like, and that's just gone. And now he's dead. That's never going to be replaced. They would have been worth a goddamn fortune. So I am not happy. But I got a load of others instead, which is kind of nice, but, you know... So yeah, my selection has been ruined somewhat. So I have less of an affinity to it.
I think I must be less sentimental than you guys, or just a bigger geek, because I gave up after I had I probably do still have 20 CDs somewhere in a box if they've not been thrown out. But I basically digitized it and just went, nah, there's no point keeping these material things. I'll just digitize it all and all my friends' CD collections, and that'll do me. Thank you very much.
MP3s aren't as good, though. The difference in quality is noticeable.
At 256k bitrate, I can't hear the difference.
I can't. Well, I used to be able to. My old ears probably can't tell the difference now. But only 256 kg? You pedestrian Luddite. 320 or nothing.
20 years ago.
See, the main difference between me and Andy and you, John, is that we haven't got terrible taste in music.
That is also true.
Wait, you're saying that one of us does?
Yes. What's that behind you, John? Is that the Backstreet Boys collection you've got there?
No, it's not.
Oh, no, it's Westlife.
I think you're confusing me with someone else.
No, I'm not.
I just use Spotify these days, and then problem goes away.
You pay for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want an advert every 30 seconds.
No, I mean, I use it all day, every day at work. It's how I get software done. I just drown the rest of the office out with noise-cancelling headphones and the Rocked playlist.
Excellent.
So I would dispute your claims that I've got awful taste in music. That's utter rot.
Well, it depends what kind of rock you listen to. Is it dad rock?
I don't know what that means.
Nickelback greatest hits, probably.
No, it's not. I'll share
That's
the
a very small
playlist.
CD.
I'll share the playlist with you guys, and you can criticize me later. But it's
Excellent.
not that.
We will do that. Nickelback.
We should probably
greatest
talk
hits.
about some board games, chaps. I know
No,
this is,
we shouldn't do that. That'll be ridiculous. Nobody wants
should.
that. That's not why we're popular. Oh no, we're not popular. Yeah, let's talk about board games.
So I got an email today to say that the Nemesis Pledge Manager starts next week.
Yes, we all got that, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it looks quite good.
It does. The artwork looks lovely. The minis look fantastic. I am properly excited about that game.
Quite glad I kept my pound.
Are you going to change your mind, are you, Mr. Lewis? Are you going to go back in and back it on the back of kit?
It depends on how much money I have left over at the end of May, because within the space of 2 weeks, I have a trip to Edinburgh and then Expo.
I was going to say, remember, end of May, beginning of June is UK Games Expo.
I know. And yeah, the weekend before that, I've got a lash up in Edinburgh. So that's 2 expensive weekends.
Ouchie.
And we all know how much I drink.
Ouch.
Yeah, you're right. You're not going to have enough money, but somehow you're going to find it, I suspect.
Yes.
You might
Speaking
be
of atrocious money pits,
right. Ooh, hello.
Fantasy Flight Games have announced X-Wing 2nd Edition.
Bum, ba, bum,
Yes. I remember the discussions on here and everyone complaining that it's just a big money pit. You know, because, miniature games have never been like that. That's just a new thing.
Yes,
No, I didn't spend literally thousands of pounds on Warhammer. No. That's
None
a
of
new
us
thing.
did.
No.
I mean, it's quite weird, like looking at those forums and the reaction of that X-Wing announcement. You'd swear like as if Warhammer 40,000 is still on the first edition and no one ever had to buy new rule books and new codexes.
No, indeed. What's it on now? Like the 8th edition?
We're on 9th for 40k.
Ninth? Is it
8th?
9th? Is it 9th?
I can't remember.
No, I'm sure it's 8th. No.
I'll take
9th.
yeah.
It is
It
8th.
doesn't matter.
Many.
More than 2, and that's where I stopped.
Yeah.
1, 2, many.
I gotta admit, I'm rather excited by this. I used to play about 2 or 3 years ago a hell of a lot of X-Wing, and I've kind of not played as much since I moved away from Worcester. But one of the things I did do is I did go into a tournament recently and found that I was way out of date with everything, and ships were doing crazy things that meant when I first played, it kind of like felt like your skill as being able to maneuver the ships was really important. Because I remember going to a tournament where somebody had brought like one of these tournament winning lists they've seen online that required you to buy like the most expensive model, and they got their ass kicked by someone who had learnt to play that week.
Oh, wow.
And just cobbled 3 ships together they liked. But I watched him play and he knew exactly how to maneuver into out of everyone's firing arc.
Right.
And I really am looking forward to this new rules, like refreshing everything and making it come back to being about, being a skillful pilot rather than just having the most broken list and the most up to date.
Well, that's what it should be
set.
about, isn't it? Because the whole point is it's skilled piloting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it should be. But what happens with any game that's got tournaments or any miniatures game that requires, and card games like Magic are the same for this, any game that requires you to keep, from a business point of view, keep buying more stuff will have that kind of scope creep.
Yeah, sure.
Where the new cards come out as slightly better than the last ones kind of thing.
That is why I don't buy them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why the wise person should not purchase them.
Any game like that, just instant turn off for me. If it involves buying more stuff to stay competitive, I'm not even going to start.
Agreed. Yes, it's the I have more money, therefore I'm going to win mentality. And I don't like that. So I'm quite happy buying my standard board games and getting my ass kicked at that instead.
Yeah, likewise.
I am rather excited about the new X-Wing though, because I would like to get back into some tournaments. But one of the things that really got me, and this is the silliest thing ever, lockable S-foils on the X-Wings.
And what are they?
God, I can't believe he doesn't know this.
Yeah, I know. Should he go?
I prefer the more elegant Star Trek to Star Wars. Picard has it every time. Tea Earl Grey hot and all that.
So the S-foils are, when the X-Wing goes from like a normal 2-wing plane to an X-Wing.
Yes.
The wings move.
The wings move. That's the S-foil. So in the original models, they were just always in the X position because you already seemed to be in combat. But like if you've played the old X-Wing game on the PC, you could unlock the X-Wings and put them back into the flying mode and you get speed boost. and they've actually brought that back into the game. So the models actually have the X-wings opening and closing now.
Speed boost
Yes.
Yeah.
in space, where there's
They're not
no
always in
resistance.
space.
So the shape of the thing doesn't fucking matter.
They're not always in space.
Star Wars is not a representation of real physics.
No, I
It's
know. I
basically
realise that.
World War II dogfighting is what it is.
It is, yes.
Also, Jedi, magicians. I mean, come on, there's magic. So magic.
True, yes. And you're right, John, they're not always in space. I'll give you that.
Would you ever see like some of the original cuts that Lucas showed to Spielberg?
Possibly not.
There's a whole thing about he'd filmed the actual film but hadn't finished doing the special effects. So he showed cuts to Spielberg to try and get some kind of interest and also show off what he was doing. And for the dogfight, like the attack on the Death Star, he actually just used World War II footage.
Huh.
So Spitfires chasing Messerschmitts and shooting down Messerschmitts.
Awesome.
Okay, that's quite a cool idea.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? You're sat in the cinema watching them attack the Death Star, just about to start a trench run, and a fucking Spitfire just hooves into view on a blue sky with a Messerschmitt above it.
Tally ho, chaps. Bombs away.
Achtung! Das British and all that. I'm sure Sven's going to have a field day with that.
So anyway, that's the news. What have we been playing?
They say 20 minutes in.
I think that's a record. 20 minutes. That's going well.
It is. That's efficiency. What have we been playing?
One game both me and Andy played this week, and it hits Kickstarter Thursday. So it would have already been. The Kickstarter started by the time you listen to this. Is Hard City.
Snigger. Phrasing and all that.
So I vowed last night that I was going to look up all these games that Steve listed down that we'd talk about, and so I'd have a clue about what we were going to look at. And
You got drunk, didn't you?
no, I didn't get drunk, but I didn't manage to get as far as actually looking at them. So Steve, what is Hard City about?
So Hard City is a one versus many game. So one person takes on the role of
A Viagra vendor.
I can't. He's not Dr. Evil, but he might as well be called Dr. Evil, who controls a bunch of mutants, not zombies, mutants.
Mutants, yeah,
Whereas
you get that right.
Completely different.
Other players take on the role of the Hard City Police Department, and you take on all the miniatures. And basically, it's a scenario-driven game where you have to kill the mutants, and the mutants have to do things like kill civilians or kill the police officers.
Yes.
But what makes this quite unusual is it's kind of drenched in this kind of 80s action movie kind of nostalgia. So everything looks kind of neon in colour.
Okay.
All the police characters are completely over the top. Like you've got like the kind of Officer Hightower kind of close combat expert. One of them's an expert markswoman. One's a medic, and then the last one is this like massively overweight cop, where the miniature is actually eating a donut with one hand while shooting with the other hand.
It's brilliant. So the really hard close combat dude reminds me of Terry from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It is honestly, it's definitely him. It even looks like him. So if anyone's seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Terry's like this muscle-bound sort of lifter guy who's built like a brick shithouse. He's soft and he's got 2 kids. He's a big softy, but he looks double hard. And I swear to God, it looks like him.
Fair enough.
And he's obsessed with yogurt.
I also thought the female sharpshooter in one of the images looked a lot like Detective Decker from Lucifer,
Yes, she
Okay.
does.
but with like an 80s bandana on her as well and carrying an AK-47.
Yeah, Chloe doesn't do that in Lucifer.
No, she doesn't. Not at all.
I'm actually finishing off Series 3 at the moment. It's brill.
It is very good.
It is surprisingly good, considering how cheesy it really is. I'm really enjoying it.
Tom Ellis is brilliant. Detective douche.
I also feel
Yes,
the
it's
sudden
it.
need to buy a handkerchief to put in my top pocket.
Yes, I need to get myself some more suits and some more waistcoats. And
Yeah.
speak with a slightly
Anyway.
condescending British accent. Wait, hang on. There's a
You
character.
ticked
Hang
one
on a
box
minute.
there. Oh dear.
So Hard City as well. It's really straightforward rules. So the cops have got action points they can spend, which are attracted by the amount of donuts they've got.
Right.
And basically, they can move, they can shoot, which involves rolling some dice, and if they want to, they can take an aimed shot, which costs them twice as many donuts, but they instantly kill one of the mutants on the board.
Okay.
Yes.
There's no line of sight. You can just shoot anything. There's some restrictions on movement because like an abandoned car, and there's the police car which comes in. Oh, that's a really cool thing as well. The police, you enter the game in the police car, and after the Dr. Evil player has already set up the mutants at this point, so you can drive the police car for as many mutants as you can in one go.
Bastards.
That sounds
And
like
then
fun.
jump out.
So how do you win or lose this game then?
But scenario driven. So the first scenario in the demo game, because we've only got a prototype.
Yeah.
But the first scenario it's a very simple one. You have to protect the civilians. So civilians will spawn on the board each turn, and the police department's player will gain victory points for escorting them to the helicopter and getting them safe, and gain a victory point for every 10 mutants they kill. Whereas the mutant player will gain victory points for every civilian they kill, and for every police officer they kill.
Okay.
And it's just the first person to 7 victory points.
Sounds simple enough.
It was great fun. I really enjoyed it.
It's fun, and that's the simplest way to put it. It's really fun. It's really straightforward. I mean, it's quite interesting. There's a kind of asymmetry between the two players as well, because the police department player is definitely using action points and rolling dice, whereas the mutant player has got cards to play, and all his actions are predetermined. So it's very rare that the mutant player will roll the dice. He will move so many mutants. He will do so much damage.
Okay.
And the cards will either give you a series of essentially basic moves like spawn, move, or attack, or there's a special action on the card, and you've got to choose either use the special action or use 2 of the 3 basic actions. You can't do both. And it's quite... It gets to the point where sometimes you want to use the really, really powerful special action, or you're like, well, I kind of want to do both, but you can't, and it's really annoying. If I could do that and that, I'd win the game. You can't do both, Andy. God damn it.
Yeah, that sounds like most games with you.
Yes. Our game came down to literally the last roll of Steve's dice. And the won.
There was one civilian left out in the middle of nowhere, and there was no way I could get enough. I had enough action points to get to the civilian and get him back to the helicopter. So basically, the last round I had was I just have to kill. We were both 1 victory point away from winning. I just had to kill as many mutants as I could and hope that I get my mutant kill score up to 10, which gives me that last victory point. And I had 1 action left, and I was 1 mutant kill away from winning the game. And I didn't have the 2 action points that would have given me an automatic kill. So I basically had 1 roll of the dice left, and if I'd have scored any less than 2 hits, and I'd lost the game, because Andy would have just walked up the civilian and massacred them. So I needed to roll 2 hits on these dice, and I did it, and Andy was not happy.
I can imagine...
Bastard.
Yeah, I can imagine the swearing. I imagine that was fairly glorious, Steve.
It was, yes.
It was almost very 80s in a way. You mentioned the movies, and it's almost like, the last sort of scene of the film where the hero's got 1 bullet left and he has to shoot the bad guy, through a series of holes in a door or something. And he says an entertaining one-liner, like, "Hey, Sully, I said I'd kill you last. I lied."
I
I hope you did have a one-liner, Steve.
No, I didn't.
I did.
Sorry.
I had a one-worder, but it wasn't very polite.
Yes.
It's not repeatable even on this podcast.
Not even an air horn could bleep it out.
Good stuff. So that was Hard City. Do you have any indication on price yet, or?
At this time, no, because I'm waiting for the Kickstarter preview to go up. But as you listen to this, it should already be up and been online for a few days.
I reckon it'll be about 50 to 60 quid, given the number of
I'm saying I reckon about the same. 50 quid is my punt, because it's got a lot of miniatures in it.
Yes.
Because you've got miniatures for all the cops, which are amazing. Or the prototypes we've seen are amazing. And there are lots of different sculpts for the mutants as well.
Fair enough.
So I'm expecting to be that kind of range. It's by Hexy Studios, who did Cave In, which we talked about last year.
Neither of us have played since receiving the Kickstarter.
Played since, yeah. So we both backed their previous Kickstarter, and it actually did come with one of the miniatures as like a sample. So it came with the fat cop,
like a teaser.
But
Yes.
But they were really good. They did run a really good Kickstarter last time, so I'm confident that they'll deliver on time in that.
It was surprisingly good value, actually. Sorry, Steve. I found that that Cave-In was actually really good value for what you got in the box. Because if I remember right, it was only about 30 quid. If I remember right. I mean, it's possible I inflated that massively by paying for all of the sort of miniature totems and all that sort of stuff. But
That doesn't sound like you at all, Andy.
Not at all, no. It was a surprising break from character by, adding all of the add-ons on. I've never done that. Deep madness, sorry. Cough. That cough's come back.
Nasty.
I should also point out, it's been designed by Adam Kopwinski, who is designer of Nemesis, which we just talked about, Lords of Hellas, the Stranger Things rip-off game that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but Board and Dice did.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I really like that game.
Upside Downville. Oh, no.
It'll come back to us. You can edit it in later.
We need that music again. We need the waiting for things music.
What's going to happen is it's going to come to me like 20 minutes' time and I'll suddenly just shout out the word.
Yes.
So yeah, that's on Kickstarter now. I suggest you go have a look because me and Andy really enjoyed it.
Yes, and at least one of us is probably going to back it.
I suspect from your description I would also enjoy that game.
I think you would, John. I think you would massively
I think you would as well.
Just because you can be a dick. And in fact, it's if you play as the mutant player, it is your job to be a dick.
Just
he raises an eyebrow.
I might not be.
So what's Darwin's choice? You've written that here. I've not heard about that yet. Is that like where you have to select a lot of idiots and choose to remove them from the gene pool?
I saw a picture of this the other day and I thought it looked like it could be fun.
So Darwin's Choice is another Kickstarter game. Again, hit Kickstarter yesterday, actually, and I haven't finished writing my review for it. It's going to go on the website soon. It is a game in which you're trying to create and evolve species.
This sounds like Spore.
Yeah, but better than Spore.
Well, that's not hard.
It's not hard, though. So what you're doing is you're actually making like these weird amalgamations of various different bits of species.
Definitely.
So you've got like the back of a humpback whale, the head of a wildebeest, the tail of a seagull, and the legs of a giraffe. And each one of these body parts has got different characteristics. And what you're trying to do is match the total creature to the characteristics of the environment you want it to live in. So it's like a certain requirement to actually live there, and then there are requirements to, if you can meet, the more of these symbols you match with the environment card, the better you are adapted, so you'll score points for being the best adapted creature. But you've also got to make sure you feed your creature as well, so there's limited food supply, so you've got to choose whether you want herbivores or carnivores, and the size limitations, so bigger creatures require more food.
Okay.
There's also little trophy symbols, and whoever has the most trophy symbols on their creature at the end of each round gets even more victory points. Now, what the clever thing is you've got really limited actions, so you can only do something on a creature once per round. So you can either create a creature, evolve a creature, which involves changing those card components, but its head, its tail or something, or you can migrate it, basically move it to one of the other environments on the board. Every round, certain environments will change. Like, for example, I started the game and we had a coastline and I had a nice little wildebeest frog that was minding its own business.
A frildebeest, if you will.
A frildebeest, yeah. It wasn't flashy, got a few points.
It's better than a brog.
However, at the end of the round, the environment changed and it became a Arctic desert. And all of a sudden, my poor little wildebeest frog was not going to survive. So I had to try and evolve it into something else so it had the characteristics to meet that environment, or I tried to try and move it.
Why, a coat?
Unfortunately for the poor wildebeest frog, it couldn't move because it didn't have the requirements of any other locations, and I didn't have the cards in my hand to evolve it into something that would survive. So it went.
It's Darwin's choice.
Indeed.
It sounds. Wow. Some of those mechanics sound a lot like photosynthesis to me.
I never thought of it like photosynthesis. You can't. Photosynthesis is all about dicking over the other players. This
it's not.
It's a mixture of things.
I mean, that's what happens, but.
But photosynthesis does have the same sort of thing where you're vying for particular resources, and presumably, if one of you has something that eats lots, there is scarcer resources around, or are you completely isolated from the other people?
No. You're in competition with the other players' creatures. So, for instance, as you said, if your creature is a big creature and perfectly adapted and is a herbivore, it can eat all the plant life, and so therefore other creatures can starve because they can't get food.
Yeah.
There is a rule as well that certain carnivores can eat the herbivores.
Nice.
Later in the game, but we never actually got to that point in the games we played because we never really ran out of the food resources and the locations. It's quite interesting because, as I said, you've got such limited options that at what first seemed a bit silly, because I mean, when you first saw it, Andrew, I showed some pictures of it, and you weren't very impressed by the look of it. But there's actually a lot more depth to the game than what first appears, because you're balancing so many different requirements and components and such like. There's a problem though.
Go on.
And that problem is that you are reliant completely on what cards you draw.
Right, okay.
There's two sizes of cards, which is basically bodies and legs and heads, tails, and other things. And you draw them a bit like Countdown. Because you always draw up to 10 cards at the end of a round.
Countdown? Would you have like one from the top and 4 of any other?
2 small ones, 1 big one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. You draw a card, you see it, then you can decide which deck you draw the next card off.
Ooh.
So you do have some kind of like visibility. So it's not just like draw up to 10 cards, oh, this is what I've got. You can draw a card and go, well, hang on, I can use that with that. Maybe if I just get a decent head to go with that, I'll just draw something off the smaller card tile, see if we get a decent head. The problem is you are completely reliant on what's in this deck and when it comes out. And I don't know if it's just a thing with a prototype deck, but it was a massive deck of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely huge. And we had a problem the last game we played where 2 of the environments needed wings. So your creatures need to be able to fly to survive in these environments. And neither of us had any winged cards. And both of us were doing all the actions we could to try and, like, you can take a mulligan at the beginning of your round, you know, or you can trade with some cards in the centre. And both of us were desperately trying to get a wing card out the deck and couldn't. After 2 draws, nothing was happening. So it was like everything died.
Oh,
well,
it was like a mass extinction.
At least everyone
event.
died.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was quite frustrating, kind of going, I just need this card to survive. And I found this problem a couple of times. Like, one of the environments changed, I needed creatures that could climb trees. And I just couldn't get those cards I needed. Whereas Amanda had one of those cards, made one change, and all of a sudden the creature survived, which means, you know, it's an extra 5-10 points just for a bit of a look of the draw.
Could you do some element of card management where you're holding on to more of a variety in your hand rather than playing them straight away? Would that help? Or so you're saying that you don't have the right cards at the right time. Do you find at other times you're burning through cards?
No, because you are all. If you've got cards that can make a creature that will fit in one of the environments, you will make that creature.
But you don't ever discard the cards at some point and draw new ones.
The only time you do that is you can take a mulligan, which is just that, to discard cards, to draw cards, and you can do that once at the beginning of your round.
Okay.
And what we were finding is we were taking a mulligan every round.
Oh, wow, that's not good.
Or at least I was. because I had 2 or 3 really good creatures, and then the cards out of my hand did not make a creature which met one of the environments. So it was like, well, I've got to get rid of all my hand and see if I can draw something better. And I drew it, and it was like, well, it's got the same as what I started with. So I had to wait another round for that to come around, by which time Amanda's like racking up the points because all of her creatures have survived.
So you did say that there were later bits in the game. Do you think it's by design that you're supposed to have a few things go extinct at some point?
I think you are supposed to have some things go extinct, but I just found it a bit frustrating that your entire game can come ground to a halt just based on what you've drawn.
Yeah.
Too swingy, I think.
There are rules in there for trading, and the basic rules say you're supposed to trade with other players, which in my opinion never works because you both have to exactly the same thing. So why are you going to trade with someone?
Yeah, it's true.
When you're after the same
card.
card.
You wouldn't trade with someone if you're going to give them an advantage. That's kind of nature, though.
Yeah, true. But the other option is, the one we tried, was you place like a pool of cards in the middle, and you can swap cards with what's in that middle trading pool. But we got to a point when nobody wanted animals that could walk on land or swim at this point in the game, and the middle trade pool had then become all the cards we didn't want.
Right.
So it was like it needed a tweak, and I don't know what that tweak is. Whether it's less cards in the deck, less variety, or because there's several duplicates as well. You draw a card and go, well, I've already got one of them.
Or maybe the ability to completely replenish the cards in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
maybe when you pick, when you're picking up new cards, you pick like 3 and then chuck away 2 or something.
Yeah, it needed something to allow you to actually play the strategy of the game.
Yeah.
Because there's the potential for a lot of strategy there, because you want to try and make a creature that's adaptable but really strong. So for instance, a creature that's really strong is going to get you lots of victory points this round. But if the environment changed, that creature is now completely humped. So it'd be nice to be able to explore that strategy of adaptability versus strong for that environment. But unfortunately, it just felt like the card drawing just ground that to a halt a little bit.
Okay.
It is on Kickstarter right now. It's already funded, I think, because I started yesterday. As I said, I think it's got potential, but I think it needs a couple of tweaks before the final game comes out.
Well, if it's already funded, it doesn't really matter what we say. So.
Well, no, we are offering advice to our listeners.
That is true, yes.
Of course it matters. It depends how massively successful it's going to be. Like, funded is just one level. You can keep going and make a lot more money beyond that.
True. Or if we can just be smug and go, told you so.
But you already knew so. Shh, quiet you.
Well, speaking of... No, that's a really terrible link. No, never mind. Somebody else say something.
Go on, do it. You've started it. You start your terrible link.
It kind of fell apart. I was going to say, speaking of animals, I have been playing something that consists of stuffed animals.
Terrifying stuffed animals.
Yes, actually. The stuff of literal nightmares. Stuffed Fables, in fact, which I bought not quite on a whim, because I'd seen a few people on various groups commenting that it's quite good fun. And I saw it in the flesh when I was up in York in Travelling Man, and I was talked out of buying it by Alora. But once I was free of the shackles, I caved.
The voice of wisdom.
No, she was wrong, because it's actually really good.
It's funny because I saw the artwork for the box before and I thought, kids game. And then I saw some pictures that Andy posted and I was like, whoa, that doesn't look quite so much like a kids game anymore.
It's really not, no. The idea is that it's what's called a storybook game. It's by the same people who did Dead of Winter, so it's by Plaid Hat. And the idea
Happy
is
times.
Oh, yeah, they make the really happy games to Plaid Hat. The idea is that you play as one or many of a number of stuffies, so stuffed toys. The idea being that there's a little girl who has just graduated from a cot or crib to a big girl bed, so a proper bed. And this is her first night in said bed, or at least the first story opens like that. So the whole idea is that she sort of graduated, she's in the big bed, and the stuff of nightmares begins to appear. So she goes to sleep one night, and the old wise toy says, "Right, this is the time we've all trained for." And she goes to sleep, and once she goes to sleep, a bit like Toy Story, everybody sort of wakes up at night. And there's a sort of an evil from under the bed, and that's where all these nightmarish creatures come from that you saw, John. So there's all these little miniatures in the game in varying levels of size, complexity, and terrifying nature.
Yeah, the one that really got me was the one that looked like that thing out of Toy Story, where it's like a doll's head with sort of
Pincers.
half-open eyes and pincers, and
Yes, that's horrible. It's a nasty miniature. You want to see some of the actual sort of the main big bads? They're really cool. And the idea is that you play as one of the stuffies, and you are defending the girl, the little girl, from all of these creatures of nightmare. And you go through this, and there's no board. You go through this big book, and each page of the book is the playing board. and the scenario. And some rules around it. So you set up the little scenario, and there's a little sort of entry point to the monsters, and there's little sort of bits and bobs you can investigate. The whole mechanics behind the game is that you draw dice, and each colour of die represents a different action that you can take. You can use dice in a fairly generic way, but there's certain obstacles on the board that you can only use certain colours of dice to get across, and all that sort of stuff. And different colours of dice mean you can attack ranged attacks, melee attacks, search for things, all that sort of stuff, and you can pick up kit. So one of the stuffies has a meat tenderizer as a weapon.
So there's lots of options to defeat the various obstacles and things.
Yes, yeah. Combat is dice based. It's very straightforward. The enemies have a defense value. You roll a die or a multiple combination of dice to beat that defense value, and you beat the bad guy, and you get a little button which you can use to then spend at a shop later in the game to buy more kit, etc., etc. It's very straightforward. Lovely idea. The artwork's fantastic. The game flows really well, and it's not just combats, because Alora's not a big fan of just combat games, so she's not a big fan of things like Gloomhaven and Dungeon Crawlers, because it is just combat over and over and over and over again. I like it, we all love it, but she's not a fan, so she was a little hesitant at first, but then the second or third scenario we did, because the stories follow on, it's a campaign, so each story, and you get a branching story campaign, so depending on how you do in certain events, dictates which part of the next story you go to. It's almost like choose your own adventure in a way. So and you can go back to different bits depending on what happens. Because the story we played, and this probably isn't going to be a spoiler because it's not a legacy game because it's resettable. You can just go back and play it again, and you're basically trying to find the blanket of the little girl because the bad guys steal it in the first story, and you go and sort of try and rescue it, and you'll get pulled into the hole beneath her bed. And if you get the blanket in the first go, then you basically go straight to pretty much the hideout of the big bad. But he appears and tries to steal it back. If he steals it back, you go to one part of the adventure. If he doesn't steal it back, you go to a different bit, and you can try and get out and all that sort of jazz. So, and there's about 7 different stories in it. I've only played the first one so far. But it's not just combat. There's one where you're on a train ride. So you're essentially going along the tracks, and you're trying to jump from coach to coach to try and catch the big bad.
Like a toy train.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's kind of lovely and whimsical with a horrendously dark and twist. It's almost kind of like Alice in Wonderland in a way. It's like this nice sort of fairy tale on top, but hideously twisted underneath. And it works really, really well. And the miniatures are lovely.
Like the Grimm fairy tales.
Kind of, yes. It's all happened. Like Hansel and Gretel starts off all very well and nice, but then they meet the witch, and it all goes south quite quickly.
Indeed. Was there a video for this thing? Because I've seen like an animation about where the kids fall asleep at night and the toys go off to fight. Like the bear does battle, and he's like some hardcore. It sounds very much like this. Like they got twirling sticks and stuff that they're going off and beating monsters with. Keep the kids safe.
Are you not thinking of Kung Fu Panda?
No, I'll dig out the link after this and find it for you. But it's
cool.
It sounds like it was probably written for this game, if it wasn't in fact an intro for it at some point.
But I'm really impressed with it. Alora and I really loved it. We started playing the first scenario, and we got through that in about 20 minutes or something. Each scenario is not particularly massive, but the whole story as a whole took us about 3 hours to play. And you can kind of stop it at wherever you want. Although I think it would be nice if it had the option to kind of save your game, because depending on where you start and what kit you carry through the game, you'd need to remember what you had. There's no option to like stick it all in a bag and start again.
You can just take a picture of it or something.
Yeah, we ended up doing that halfway through, but then we thought, actually, we're really enjoying this. Let's just go back and play it and finish it.
Now that's a sign of a good game.
Exactly. Yeah, because I was like, oh, should we play Tricerion? No, let's carry on playing this. It's really good fun. Okay.
Cool.
How are the rules in it then? Because I heard there were some issues that the rules got a little bit too complicated in places. Or did you not notice this?
There's a little bit of... There was a couple of occasions where we weren't quite sure what exactly the ruling was, but we both read through it and kind of agreed, okay, that's probably what it means. So whilst, I mean, they're not bad rules, they could probably be a little clearer in places, if I'm honest. They're not as well written as, say, Dead of Winter rules.
Okay.
And I think I mean, John's mentioned, is it a kid's game? I suspect it's probably intended as a family game.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules are a little lighter reading, so they're a lot easier to learn. So they're probably less clear but easier to read, if that makes sense. Because family games are generally a bit lighter. Like the same trouble we had with Grim Forest, basically. Mostly fine, but if you enter a situation and you need clarity, it's not necessarily there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But again, it's a cooperative game, so as long as you're reasonable about it and everyone agrees on the way forward, it's generally fine. We didn't really find it was horrible, and there was always a way forward, so it wasn't too bad.
Cool. How much does it go for?
That's the kicker. The RRP, at least I assume it's the RRP, because when I looked in Travelling Man, it was £64, which isn't terrible, but it's not cheap either. But obviously, it's got quite a few miniatures in it, and they are really lovely miniatures. And there's obviously the big storybook, lots of cards, dice, and all that sort of jazz. I picked it up for about 52, so a little bit of a discount.
So the real question is, does it feel like value for money at that price?
Yes, it does.
Cool.
Because I've only played one story so far, and that took us about 3 hours.
You say there's 7 of them.
There's 7. I think it's 7 in the main book. The book's huge, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a legacy game, you can replay them, and because you've got the branching story arc, you can play it again, and you might get a different result because there's dice involved. So you might not necessarily get the same outcome each time. So it's definitely got replay value.
Interesting. I will have to.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll have to find you for that. In fact, maybe we should go along to the board gaming night that we've discovered is in Malvern on a Wednesday.
Definitely, as we record this podcast, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
But yes, we shall definitely do that.
It was quite fortuitous, my locking my car keys in my car.
Oh, yes, you idiot.
What?
So
Did you not hear about this?
I was driving.
No, I didn't hear about this.
I was driving into work and stopped it's probably about 5 minutes away from the house driving. I stopped and I was getting out onto a main road, so I closed the door quickly. And as I closed it, I heard like a click, like I'd dropped something as the door closed, and then immediately the car locks itself. It's like a Mazda. So normally when you walk away from the car, when you get about 4 or 5 feet away, it locks. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And then I was like, oh no. Started patting myself down. Sure enough, no car keys.
Doing the mad pat of every single pocket.
Yep, several times. And then just looking at the car door, oh no, tell me I didn't just have a quick hunt under the car. Nope, car keys aren't there. Try the door handle, try the lock. Nope, it's definitely locked itself. Turns out when I got out of the car, I managed to drop the key out of my pocket and it landed on the sill of the door. And then I closed the door over the top, making a perfect Faraday cage, whereupon the car went, oh, the key's no longer here. I'll lock myself. Which, after I'd done a bit of swearing, meant that I then had to run home. So I ran home, got the spare key, got the bike, and came back. But when I was running home, I spotted the poster that said, on Wednesday night, in the pub nearby, there is a board gaming night. And I was like, oh, well, I suppose, silver lining.
Excellent. Especially as said pub is literally 2 minutes walk from where I live.
Yeah. Happy coincidences.
Indeed.
Means you won't put your back out carrying Tricerian to it.
Tricerian's not that heavy, to be fair. It's
No,
not
okay.
that much in the... I mean, it's not light, but it's not that heavy. I mean, it's no Gloomhaven.
Very few games are.
But it's probably about the same sort of scale as, I don't know, something like Solkin or Ave Roma. It's that sort of volume. It's not that big. It's a sort of standard board game size. I don't know why people seem to think it's that complex. I've sort of gone through it and thought, it's not that complicated.
It's by the same people who made Anachrony, isn't it? So
Yes.
I thought that maybe it was the same kind of complexity and bits fest that Anachrony is. But I suppose Anachrony, half of that is the miniatures for the workers.
True. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not straight. It's not simple. We're not exactly playing Flux here, but it's. I mean, maybe just because I'm getting used to playing, the really hefty Euros, and playing your Ave Roma now is kind of a breeze. I'm thinking anything is, but it's. I mean, it's not that straightforward. I had to explain a few times to Alora how stuff worked, and she's like, "Oh yeah, okay, fine." And we went through an entire turn, and I think she understands it now. so it's not straightforward. But I wouldn't say it's outrageously heavy. It's probably on the par of Anachrony in terms of complexity. Maybe slightly lighter.
I do want to play that game.
Yes, me too. What, Dracarian or Anachrony? Both.
Both.
Yes. Correct.
I want to play Anachrony again, and I would like to play Dracarian.
Yes.
I'd like to play them both at least once.
Yes, I do like Dracarian, actually. The artwork and the theme of it is wonderful. Because it's all about magic tricks. So you play some kind of magician putting on shows, and there's lots and lots of different tricks that you have to build and learn and blah, 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 blah. But
I remember you mentioning it before.
Yeah, we'll go through it at the future podcast once I've actually played it properly.
Do you get a Michael Caine Keaton that explains how the trick works?
Michael Caine or Michael Keaton?
Michael Caine.
Blowing the bloody doors off.
Oh, God, come on. Surely you've seen the Prestige.
I have not.
I thought you were going to be... thought you were going to say, Now You See Me.
Ooh.
No, the Prestige... Oh, but Now You See Me's twonk.
It does also have Michael Caine in it.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, Now You See Me's terrible because half the tricks are obviously CGI. It's just like, why have a film about magicians and then CGI in all the tricks?
You might as well have D&D. Here is actual magic.
Suspend disbelief.
No.
All right. I'm surprised you haven't seen the Prestige. Watch The Prestige. It's a really good film about Victorian magicians.
Okay.
Actually, it's an amazing film.
It is
all right, film. Okay.
It's true.
Speaking of which, Mr. Tudor, have you seen Infinity War yet?
No.
Oh, John, we can't ruin it for him. Or indeed anybody who's listening.
We can ruin it for them, but we won't.
Yes. Other than to say, it's awesome.
It is amazing. Yeah. Say no more before we ruin it.
You know that bit earlier when we said we're really busy?
Yes.
I've been so busy. I've not been able to go see the film. I'm hoping to go see it Sunday with any luck, but we'll see what happens Saturday.
You absolutely should. But speaking of new stuff that's just come out, Westworld Season 2 started, and oh my god, it's good.
Shut up. I haven't even seen the first season yet because I cancelled my Sky account about a week before it started. Oh, for God's sake.
Now TV.
That's true.
How does it compare? Because I found Westworld, I enjoyed it about halfway through. I really had to push myself through the first few episodes of Westworld. But once I got to about episode 5, it clicked.
It's I would say it's continuing on from where it left off at that level of intensity. Like, holy moly. Okay, and that, and now this, and now... Wait, what? Yeah, it's good.
Is it... Well, obviously it's based on the film. Have you seen the film? The original film?
No, I've not actually.
Oh... Well, I'm going to give you the same treatment, Mr. Tudor.
No, I put my hand up and say I should have watched that years ago. I think it's based on the same premise, but they, from what I know of the film, they change a lot of it.
I don't remember much of the original film, but I know that they made a lot of changes.
Was it a novel first? Because I know it's Michael Crichton wrote it.
Yes, I believe it was. I haven't read the novel, but
No.
I've seen the original film 2 or 3 times now.
Because I remember when Jurassic Park first came out as a book, everyone said, well, he's just rewritten Westworld, which is one of his previous works. It's just about a theme park that goes wrong.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah,
With
it's very
cowboys
good.
instead of dinosaurs.
Mm.
I need to see it, John. I do need to see Westworld, and it's got Tony Hopkins in, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yes,
Big
Sir
Tony H.
Tony Hopkins.
That's how he's known to his mates. Big Tony H.
Tony H.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's true.
Big Tone.
Big Tone, exactly. Light on a lash with Big Tone.
Okay. So, I played some board games.
Have you?
But
Do I need to cue the music?
But they're not new board games.
Do it. Cue the music. Do it.
Stop the bloody music. Yeah, so I've played Photosynthesis.
Again.
And I love that game. It's good. I do feel...
Actually, I played it a few weeks ago as well. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
Which is good. And I played Game of Trains again. Yeah, I know. The problem
Yeah.
is I keep having weekends where we've got friends to visit who aren't serious board gamers, and so need kind of light stuff that isn't going to take too long to play. Annoyingly, a lot of them have kids as well, which narrows the window into what she can enjoy.
Or You need to buy Mansions of Madness, because that covers all spectrums.
I've got it, but it still takes like a good hour or so or more to play, and you have to have that uninterrupted pretty much.
An hour? Which scenario you were playing? 3, baby.
Yeah, I was going to say, most scenarios I've played are 3 or 4 hours, and then that's a slow and painful death.
Exactly. We played, oh God, one of the newer ones. It was last weekend, I think it was. And it was the mystery in the museum. I'm hoping that you get a different answer every time, like you do with a few of the scenarios. I'm not going to say the answer or anything like that, but basically the idea is that you're basically trying to find a cursed relic, essentially. That's not spoiling anything because it tells you that right from the intro, in the dreadfully English voice. And we played it with newbies and stuff like that, and we spent something like 3.5 hours playing the game, and we got right at the end, totally wrong, lost. Bastard!
So when I said an hour, I mean we would have had an hour maximum uninterrupted playable time.
Oh, I see. No, you definitely don't want mansions.
So there's that. Asmodee have finally come through and sent me the missing pieces of Dice Forge, which means that game actually works. And I realised that
and you
with
can play it now.
Yep, and I have played it. But with the missing pieces, yes. With the missing pieces, though, that makes sense now why I couldn't get it to work when we originally tried it, apart from the whole 2 bottles of wine thing. Because we were missing some of the dice faces. Like, even when I lined it up, it didn't make sense. Like, the rules said you need a 1 on most sides and then some other bits and pieces. We didn't have enough 1s. So that's why. It wasn't just my fault.
Whatever.
Still
totally
blaming you.
Yeah.
We're not going to let you live it down.
Of course not. How long have you known us, John?
Like Talisman, I shall continue to defend it to the death.
You're like Sididimus in Labyrinth.
Yes.
And none shall pass without my permission.
Are you referencing my height again? Man could get a complex.
No! For once, no. Although we could get a dog for John to ride into battle on.
So the other board gaming thing that I did since the last podcast is I think I pretty much learnt the rules to Gaslands now. Skimmed them a couple more times. So Steve, if you're around on Sunday, perhaps we can give that a shot.
Gaslands.
Depends if I see Infinity War, really.
Well, true.
Oh, yeah. Infinity
Yes,
War
Gaslands does look interesting. Gaslands is X-Wing on the cheap.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bringing our podcast quite circular in its references.
X-Wing on the to be fair, it couldn't get much more expensive.
So it's a very similar concept, isn't it? Because it's about templates, and but you can't buy. Well, as far as I'm aware, you cannot buy miniatures for the game.
No.
Instead, it uses Hot Wheels.
Yeah. So you buy them cheap off eBay, and then you mod them and paint them.
Oh, is that what Ian was doing a couple of months ago? Ian Schofield, who made Ravage, Dungeons of Plunder, he was pissing about with a Hot Wheels car and sticking stuff to it.
Yeah.
And then he ended up painting. It turns out he's a really good miniature painter as well, like ridiculously good.
Not surprising, considering he's also an artist. I mean,
yeah, his drawings are pretty good too. Yeah, it's like, damn these people with talent. I mean, I've spent years trying to get my miniatures even vaguely recognisable, and I'm still shit.
Yours are getting better.
Well, yeah, I am getting better. I got through 5 miniatures last weekend, actually, so I've now done 20 of the 32 investigators in Mansions of Madness.
Not bad, not bad.
And he put these things on this car, and I thought, what the hell is he doing? Maybe he's making like a custom thing for his kid or something. But no, that makes more sense, because it ended up looking like a Mad Max car.
Yep. That's exactly the same
That
thing.
makes sense now. Wow, Penny has taken about 2 months to drop there.
So think Death Race or Destruction Derby. There's different sorts of scenarios you can play out, but essentially you're driving around in circles or driving it at each other, trying to take out the competition while sort of skidding around the map. And as you go in the game, you can you roll dice to try and change gear and things. So. Ooh. Depending on how fast you're going, your car gets more turns. So if you're in gear 3, you'll get like 3 consecutive goes with that car to try and steer it around and do stuff. But the faster you're going, the more limited your maneuvers are, and the more chance that you're going to skid out of control.
Nice.
So
It
yeah.
sounds a little bit like Carmageddon. Do you remember
Yep.
that?
Yeah, a little bit like that. Or Death Race.
Awesome. Death Race 2000.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, wow. I might have to get in on that. Shame I'm not around.
And it just so happens that once again, because I'm flipping useless, I've ended up with 2 copies of the rulebook.
Is one of them German?
No, they're both English. So I tried to order it from, what was the first one? Blackwell's. And there was no email confirmation came through that night. And the following morning, I was like, well, I really want to get the rule book, because I've already committed to buying like 50 cars off eBay. So I really want the rule book. And I checked my email again. I was like, no, nothing's come through. So clearly the order didn't go through. So then I ordered it off Wordery or something. And about 2 days later, 2 books arrived on my desk within about 30 minutes of each other. And I was like, it's happened again. And I checked back and it's like, yep, they've charged me for it. And sure enough, now there's a bloody email confirmation to say that I've ordered both. And I was like, oh, I'll just give one to Andy or Steve. I can't be bothered. It's £9 at the end of the day.
You know when you said your board game collection is 50 games, are you sure it's not just 25 games twice?
No.
Or 10 games and 40 Hot Wheels cars.
Yeah. That counts, right? Oh, dear.
Oh,
So,
good
yeah.
grief.
So I have had some board gaming action, just not as many new things as you guys have clocked up this month.
Well, speaking of new things, well, I say new things. This is a slightly old thing. This is almost a year old now. And I am embarrassed that it's taken us so long to play. After we played Hard City, Snigger.
Phrasing.
See, it's exactly. It still raises a giggle. Steve and I decided to play, mostly through guilt, Guards of Atlantis. Which is... we played it at Expo in 2017. Pretty much towards the end, we kind of wandered past and went, "Oh, hello, miniatures, that'll do." And it touts itself as a tabletop MOBA, so that's a multiplayer online battle arena. That's it. So anyone who's played Dota or I played
League
Demigod,
of Legends,
League of Legends, yeah,
Heroes
Demigod,
of
all
the
that sort of
Storm.
jazz,
Yeah.
and lots of miniatures in it. And the idea is that it is literally just a MOBA. So you take one of 2 sides. The game supports up to 9 players in the base box, 11 with the sort of mini expansion that comes with it. Well, no, it doesn't come with it, but we were kindly donated. And 11 players is a bit insane, really. And basically, the idea is that you just need to get into the enemy stronghold. So there's lots of minions running around in the middle of the board.
Mm-hmm.
In the game, the board is split up into sort of sections. So the board itself is whole, but there's different coloured areas. And the idea is that if you beat the crap out of all the minions in one section, if you have an abundance of your side, because the minions sit on each side, it then moves towards your enemy's area by 1, and they get to defend themselves. And if they win, it moves back again, and so on and so forth. And the idea is the first person to get to the enemy stronghold wins the game.
Okay.
Or rather, the first team to get to the enemy stronghold, I should say. And that's it. It's basically, that's how MOBAs work. And you each control a hero character. The minions kind of look after themselves. They don't really do anything. They just kind of fight amongst themselves. If there's a surplus at the end of a round, one of the minions on the team with the fewest minions gets rid of. So you get rid of a lesser minion, as it were. And so on and so forth. And everyone controls a hero. If you kill something, you get some cash. And every round, if you've got enough cash, you can pay to level up. So you've got a series of cards that allow you to take action. So every round, you take up to 4 actions. Everyone does it in turn. So play a card in secret. Everyone turns it over. Then you do initiative order. And all of these cards have either move, defend, attack, or there's a special action. You can kind of do a combination of these things. So you can sort of sneak up behind someone. Every character's very slightly different. So I was playing a rogue. Steve was playing... What were you playing?
It's like an elven blade warlock.
That's it, yes.
Whose special ability was basically being able to like move around quick, so they could like teleport across the board.
That's right. And I was playing some kind of little sort of bladed rogue thing, so I could run up behind Steve's character, steal money from him, and run away again. which I used to level up twice. So Steve was funding my character progression, and every time you level up, you can you basically upgrade one of the cards are grouped into is it three kind of types.
There was four categories.
That's right.
Now I wasn't quite sure what the because I only played one character, but they were color coded, and in your pack of cards, you only could upgrade 3 of the different colors.
That's right. No, every character has the same groupings. It's just they do different things for those groupings. And yeah, there's kind of 3+1 levels of cards. So you start off obviously at level 1. When you level up once, you level up one of those cards to level 2, and then you've got to upgrade everything to 2 before you get to 3, and so on and so forth. When you get to beyond level 3, there's literally one level 4 card. It's like a super ability once you've unlocked that.
Okay. Are they quite tough to get to them?
Yes, it does make sense to level up. There's some pretty nifty and rather entertaining abilities chucked in there. The rub is, and I actually, to be fair, I quite like this idea that there's a choice of 2 cards when you level up for that particular colour. When you choose one of them, you use the other one's kind of special ability. So essentially it's a special item like Boots of Speed or Wand of Initiative or whatever it is. And you gain a permanent bonus. So you got to look at these 2 cards and think, well, do I want the ability or do I want the magic item? And I was torn in that situation sometimes.
I thought that was a really clever system. And if you've played Dota 2, it replicates that kind of leveling up and buying equipment. You know, going back to the shop and buying stuff to power up your character.
Okay.
I thought it was a really clever decision the way it did that, actually.
Yes, but
well, hang on. Before we get to the but, I would say, there was a lot of things I quite liked about this. As you said, the card system was really clever. The way you upgraded it, the way you played the 4 cards. You basically had 5 cards, and one of the 5 cards was a weight, which is basically do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you played an attack earlier in the round, and you weren't going to do an attack later, so your opponent can anticipate a little bit what you're going to do. So that whole limited actions, limited options was really quite clever. It did feel like it had replicated the basics of a MOBA. You were desperately trying to get that upper hand so that your lane could be pushed. Now, we only played the 2-player version, so we only had 1 lane, if you know the analogy of a MOBA, whereas most MOBAs have 3. So, I don't know. I think the map for more players on the other side. So, was that did it just make 2 lanes, did it? Or did it actually go as far as 3?
Yeah, it has 2. So, 4, I think is it 6 or more, 5 or more players, you use either side and you get 2 lanes instead of 3, instead of 1.
And there was a nice feeling as well when you knocked down a minion, you got the gold coins, and you knew at the end of the round you could use those coins to level up. And it was like first few levels were a reasonably good, steady progression as well. So like each round, it was like, right, I'm getting better and better and getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that worked really well as well. But go on, Andy.
Well, I have 2 major issues. You only have 1 major issue because I'm the resident Polyhedron Collider dog. And my colour blindness was a bit of a problem with some of the cards because the colour scheme used nice shades of red and brown on the cards, which was lovely. So my dog eyes couldn't necessarily tell the difference at first glance what some of the symbols were without further inspection, till Steve pointed out, it does tell you with a little symbol on the top right. Yeah, there's a letter. What colour it is, Andy? Really? Oh, yeah, so it does. God damn it. But that's really difficult to see. It's this really teeny tiny letter. But I remember asking the guy at Expo, saying, did you guys test this for colour blindness? No. What?
Well, for that reason, I'm out.
For that reason, no. The biggest reason is this thing suffers from the same problem that Dark Souls does. It's just grind. Now, that's kind of par for the course for a MOBA. So, like Dark Souls, it's a good representation of its digital counterpart. But the problem with that is, on a video game, there's constant action, you can constantly move around, your fingers are always moving, and blah, 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 blah. On a board game, things obviously slow down a little bit, and it just becomes a bit of a grind, because I won the first kind of 50-50, so I moved 1 step up the lane. Then Steve won the next one, we moved back again. Then I moved up again. Then Steve won it, we moved back again. And by that point, we'd both pretty much leveled up fully. Mm-hmm. So there was no real reason for us to kill anything, in the sense that we weren't leveling up. It was basically just a case of beat the crap out of each other. At that point, it just turned into a one-upmanship against move back, move forward, move back, move forward. And at that point, we both felt it's like, yeah. I mean, eventually I won, but it did feel a bit grindy.
It was like whoever the first person to get one up on the other would win the game at that point because it was a cascade effect. So what happened is Andy managed to, I can't remember, he killed me or killed one of my minions, which meant all of a sudden my minions were outnumbered, which means I was losing more minions each round, and it just was like, I think we called it in the end. Did I just go?
Yeah, we did, because I think basically I had something like 4 minions to your 2, and there was absolutely nothing you could do in the turns remaining to even the score. Because I think I managed to kill 2 minions in a single turn because of one of my special abilities. Because I could sort of move, kill, and then move again. And all of a sudden I play one more card and then kill again. Yeah. Because I'd leveled up so much. Mm-hmm. And you just couldn't physically get anywhere near me to either kill my hero or kill as many minions as you could. And at that point, the game was essentially at a foregone conclusion.
It's like once you've tipped that first domino, it's off then. You can just say.
Well, it wasn't the first domino that was the problem. It was like the domino was swinging back and forth like a metronome. It's just like, where is it going to stop? It lacked that kind of. I mean, the only MOBA I've played a lot of is Heroes of the Storm, and one of the great things about Heroes of the Storm is when you die, as you go through the game, it takes longer and longer for you to respawn. So killing all the opposite team has this massive effect on the game, but there's always this feeling that you can bring it back around. If your team does manage to kill the other team, even though you look like you're about to lose, all of a sudden the pendulum swings back the other way and they're on the defense. But at the same time, there's this ramping up of time. The end of the game is coming soon, regardless what happens now.
Yeah, okay.
It's just who's going to maintain that thing. This felt like it was just a case of the first person to do that proper chink and get that 1 up. So it was like maybe 2 up even, because 1 up maybe could swing it back. But the first person who got that was the winner. And it just, as you said, we were both leveled up, and I was like, I can't see the game ending anytime soon if we carry on the way we're playing.
Yeah. I do have a feeling it would be better with a lot more players.
I kind of get that feeling as well. I think we played it 2 players and we only played it a character each, and I think you either want more players or you want to take control of more characters each.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you can combo abilities and things like that, and I think that's the way the game was designed. But this is the second time we played it, and we played it with more players at the expo, and we
haven't changed our feelings.
It hasn't lit that spark. No. It's like it works as a MOBA, it plays well. I mean, all the mechanics work functional. It just hasn't got that spark that says, yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah.
The other problem I have with it, which is a really weird one, the sculpts, the miniatures are really nice. And what you do is you put little plastic discs on. If you ever play a Simon game, they do the same kind of thing. They put the little plastic discs on the bottom to differentiate between the different players.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't tell the difference between some of the hero characters and some of the minions.
Yes, it's really difficult in some cases because there's a couple of the characters where the minions have like a little rifle. It's almost like the Gretchens from 40k 2nd edition.
Yeah.
And one of the characters has a long-range rifle as well. And I remember you really struggling. It's like, well, hang on, that's my character. No, that's one of the minions. What? Hang on, what? And they are really similar in a lot of cases. Yeah. It's really hard to tell them apart. And also, I thought, well, hang on a minute. There's 2 types of minions. They're both on different sides, and yet you still have the coloured bases. They're very different minions, because some of them are basically made of rock and ice, and the others are made of, I don't know, lead or metal or iron, rock or something. And they are different in sculpts. So I'm thinking, well, what's the point of the coloured bases? Other than to tell them apart. It's like, well, hang on, if you can't tell the 2 sides apart, surely that says something about the design.
I feel as if you're going to own this game and play it, you'd need to at least ink the miniatures just to give them a bit more detail.
I was going to say, would painting it just be enough of a...
Painting would make a massive difference. And to be fair, the quality of the miniatures is so nice, I reckon if you just did, like for the ice people, spray them turquoise, blue ink wash, white dry brush, they'd look really nice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the way he says that, just so blasé. That's just
I'm saying absolutely no detail. I'm talking about like basic skills now.
5-minute job.
Yeah, 5-minute job. done. Yeah, army
Yeah.
painter kind of method. Spray in one colour, dip them, done.
Dip them in talent.
Yes. There we go. This is the voice of someone who's painted the Warhammer Fantasy Army.
Done. Do you know
That'll
what?
do.
I think they will actually paint up quite nice. I'm kind of looking
I
forward to
think they
painting
would.
them. The crystal ones I think will look really lovely.
Yeah.
So I might try them as practice miniatures to improve my skills.
It's just a case of. Do you really want to play it again?
Nope. If I'm honest. What puzzles me is as well is that, no, I don't. I'm going to be honest. No, I don't at all. I don't hate it. I just like you. There's just nothing really there to draw me back again.
It's missing that. It's missing something. And I've seen other games that try to do this MOBA, and I don't see. I mean, the only one that seems to have captured people's imaginations is the one that Simon did. Speaking of Simon, but even that, I don't hear many people speak about it since the Kickstarter ended.
That's because I think it's like Dark Souls. It's just the subject matter just doesn't transfer very well to cardboard.
Yeah.
Because cardboard, board games themselves are a much slower pace than the video game equivalent. Whereas, but MOBAs aren't the quickest of video games anyway. And if you're rinsing and repeating so many times, and that takes so much longer in cardboard as well, people are just going to get bored because it's not interesting enough to either A, make you think for long enough, or B, I can't be arsed playing the same game for 4 hours if I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yes, Dark Souls, we're looking at you.
I can imagine that getting a bit tedious.
That's the problem. As I say, it does a really good recreation of a MOBA, but I just don't think the subject matter is appropriate for a board game. I think
It does a
that's
really
the
good
problem.
recreation, including the irritating bit where you're just grinding.
Yes, that's the problem. And grind doesn't work in a board game.
Well, for me, it doesn't work in a in a computer game
in a
either.
video game. Well, there's the thing, some. I mean, it's like I don't play Warcrack for the same reason.
I think the real thing is that if you're going to have something like that to pad out the game a bit, you need to disguise that aspect of it, so it doesn't feel like you're just grinding away at something. There needs to be something fresh about each of those steps, and they need to
I think
happen
that's a good
frequently enough that it's not just like, okay, I've got another 0.1 to hit now or something like that. It needs to be something where there's clear progression for you.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. As you say, it just gets boring otherwise. And I don't understand how the hell you'd get 11 players around the table either. Because the game can support, if with the expansion, up to 11 people. How the hell? Because the board's not that big. We're not talking Twilight Imperium here. It's not exactly mega civilization.
Just need smaller people.
John, you're up.
Bet you could fit 11 Johns around it.
At least 8.
If I stood sideways.
Unless it means that basically, you can have 4 players and each person controls 2 heroes. That would probably work.
That might work better, yeah.
But one thing, actually, in its defense, there is one thing that it does do quite nicely, is that because it can support an odd number of players, if you've got, say, 5 players, obviously 3 against 2 would be hideously imbalanced, and obviously the people with 3 people would win, hands down, because the balance has already been tipped. Whereas what they've included is almost like a 2 heroes in 1. So they've kind of got this sort of monkey duo, essentially, where they're kind of 2 half heroes. They each have a miniature, but the heroes, as it were, combined have the same power as 1 hero, but you can use them independently. So they have both have a reduced set of cards. That way, you can have the 2-player, the essentially 2 players on the greater number of players' side. If that makes so, 3 against 2, you'd have 2 of the 3 players would play as these 2 half characters. Does that make sense? Yeah. John's mind's just gone nuts. So you've got 2 miniatures.
Yeah.
So
I got
that's
that
2
bit.
players. That's all right. So that's 2 players.
Yeah.
So those 2 players, by their powers combined, they play as Captain
Planet.
Yes. And then the other 3 players remaining in the game. So you've got 2 full players on one side, and one full player and 2 half players on the other side.
No, you lost me again.
John's trying to do maths in his head. He's just broken him.
I got confused.
Believe me, it took me ages to work out what the rulebook was babbling about when it tried to explain this. And obviously, I've just fallen into the same trap. But to be honest, it does work. I've gone through it myself, and it works quite nicely. I mean, what they could have done was just say play with an even number of players to stop John's brain breaking. But you can't always have that in a game. Yeah, but you can't always have that in a gaming group. So I think that's actually quite a nice idea in its defence.
Okay.
So that was Guards of Atlantis. Is it actually called Guards of Atlantis, the MOBA tabletop game, or something like that for its full title?
Yes. Tabletop MOBA.
Okay, so we have one question in our mailbox this week.
We do.
From Rory J. Summers of Board Meetings.
Or Resident Paladin.
Our Paladin in our DM group, D&D group, yeah. God, sorry, I've got to do a story from our last D&D session, because you haven't heard this yet, Andy.
Oh, I haven't, no.
So, the other group, this is the group that John and Rory
The other group.
So the group compared to you.
Team Portal.
The lesser
Team Portal.
Group. Do you have cake?
It's a lie.
Are heading towards a cave that they know is to be infested with goblins. They come to the entrance of the cave, and John says, right,
Zanhorn
before we head in, Zanhorn, so John's character Zanhorn says, right, before we head in, we need to make a plan. And you know that scene in Guardians of the Galaxy when, like, Raccoon is making, like, a plan and says, right, it's really important that the last thing we do is get these batteries. And in the background, you can see Groot growing and grabbing the bit, which like sets the plan awry.
Yeah.
Yes.
As John is explaining the plan, Ben's character, the barbarian, says, I light my torch and have a look to see what's inside the cavern.
Oh, wow.
And there's like me and another character have got 60 foot of dark vision, and we can see inside the cabin. We can see the trolls and the goblins in there, who are now perfectly well aware of what's coming. It's just like, or we could just go with that and improvise.
I like the way as well that Ben says, how can they see me? It's dark. It's like, yes, and you are carrying the only light source in the room.
You're right. They probably can't see you, but they can see that there's a light entering the cave. This is not a normal thing to happen.
Even a goblin can work that out.
Indeed.
You see, our party is far, far more intelligent.
On the other hand, we did defeat them.
Eventually.
I hear.
Yeah, it was tricky.
I reckon if you had actually gone with your original plan and been sneaky, it would have been a bit easier, but the barbarian charging in was not the most tactical advantageous plan.
At least he's playing to character.
Yes,
absolutely,
true.
yeah.
See, you needed a sorcerer, basically. You need a sorcerer. Everyone needs a sorcerer.
Yes, you're right, Andy. We needed your character, and we're all doomed without him, as usual.
Of course!
Just wait till I get a few levels higher, start getting some fiery spells. It'll all change.
Anyway, Rory asks, are Kickstarter stretch goals really necessary?
Yes.
Dead and Breakfast from Braincrack Games didn't have any because they simply wanted to deliver the best version of the game. Was it a ballsy move in the current climate, or should more publishers just offer the best as a starting point?
See, that's a double-edged sword. It's a good question.
It's a good
and
question.
I can see where Rory's coming from. And to be fair, they're not the first people to do this, because Ludi Creations did this with Crisis. They didn't offer any stretch goals at all. They just said, this is the game. You can buy either the basic game with like basic meeples, or you can buy a slightly upgraded one with slightly nicer wooden manager figures. And that's it. No add-ons, no stretch goals, nothing. Obviously, I went for the upgraded one, but as did a lot of people. And it wasn't really that much difference. That's the thing. It was only like a tenner or something. You know, it wasn't a huge amount of money. They didn't try and milk it. They just said, like, basically, we're doing that. Buy it if you want, or bugger off, essentially. And I can see the merit in it.
Crisis was even weirder as well, in that there was a set number of copies.
Was there? I don't remember.
Yes. There was, I can't remember how many it was now, but it was something like so many thousand, or maybe it was 2,000, 5,000 or something like that. But there was this set number of copies, and about 2/3 of the way through the Kickstarter campaign, it had sold out.
Oh.
Maybe they'd capped like how many they thought they could realistically deal with.
Yeah, I think they basically said, right, we're going to make this many copies of it, and that's how much we're going to do in the print run.
To be honest, there's a lot of merit in that as well, because
Yeah.
you just talk to your print supplier and go, right, how much will it cost for X copies? It'll cost this much. Right. Quote done. Campaign budget pretty much set in stone. Right, we're going to go 5,000 copies. Print run, go. Quote sorted. 5,000 copies, please, Mr. Producer. Done. Easy peasy poo. Because that way you don't need to manage a varying budget. You don't need to manage people pissing about in the pledge manager, whinging about their inserts, not coping with card sleeving. People deciding, oh shit, right, that's my pledge originally, but actually I've decided to increase it or decrease it or whatever the hell it is. And your budget's flailing up and down like a hooker's pants on a Friday night. And you don't need any of that. So there's a distinct merit. I mean, certainly from a management point of view, just go, right, yeah, that's what you're getting. That's how much it's going to cost. Take it or leave it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why we're doing it. Although, alternatively, you could think to yourself, right, I've got a great game here. The core game is this, but it would be really cool if we could do some really nice miniatures there or some really cool tokens over there. And I've got this idea for an expansion, but I'm not really sure it can really justify it. But if it had enough people interested, maybe I could do that. And that's when I think stretch goals make sense.
I agree.
If it's enabling you to deliver more content that you don't think is necessarily going to be popular and isn't necessary for the actual underlying game, then I think that's a good thing to do with it.
And that's the original intent. And it's probably worth mentioning it. Stretch goals in Kickstarter and now on like all sorts of campaigns, but originally came from board gaming from that very purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said it's if I can make 1,000 copies of this game, I need, let's say, $5,000. It's going to allow me to make card out of this quality stock. But if I can raise 10 grand, I can double the card stock thickness, and it will actually cost the same amount of price. Because I'm now making twice as many units or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's most of where that came from. It was like, well, let's pass on the available upgrades as a potential, reward incentive to get the game funded even more.
Yeah.
What's happened is, in the meantime, of course, everyone has jumped on this, and it's become a marketing strategy, and the stretch goals encourage people to try to forward this and evangelize. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
The Kickstarter, and try and get more and more people on board. And there's also companies who stretch goals are absolute bollocks because they do it just as a marketing strategy because it was planned in there right from the very beginning. Now, I can't remember the example now, but there was definitely a campaign when the campaign finished, and I think they'd missed out. I think they were like under the last 2 stretch goals. They didn't get enough funding for the last 2. And then, funnily enough, like a couple of days after the campaign had finished, they said, oh, and we're going to throw in the final 2 stretch goals.
Dream Wars did that, actually.
Did it?
Yeah, they missed out on the very final stretch goal, which was like a final miniature that they wanted to chuck in. So on the pledge manager, they said, actually, it's going to cost you £2 more if you want to go for this package because we want to chuck in that miniature anyway.
That's still added an extra cost. I can't remember which campaign it was now. I've seen it a couple of times where they've just said, oh, we're going to add it in for free anyway, as if it had met the gut funding goal.
Oh, that's cheeky.
So basically, it was always intended to have that thing in it.
Yeah, that's cheeky.
Well, GameSloop was one who got into trouble for this years ago.
You stunned me.
What they did is the basic funding level was for such a stripped down version of the game. It was starting to become obvious that the intention was never to release this game at this level.
Right.
And the stretch goals were artificial. The stretch goals were what was always going to be intended in the game, but they'd set the funding target low in order to try and get hype because everyone suddenly went, it's funded, excellent, right, we can all jump on board now.
Yes, that makes sense.
And they had a couple which they cancelled because it looked like they were, even though they passed their funding goal, I think it was them anyway, even though they passed their funding goal, they weren't going to make the stretch goals they needed to actually make the game, so they cancelled it.
Ouch.
Dirty!
But that was Game Salute, so
yeah.
calling them dirty is like shooting fish in a barrel. It's
That said, they did get their act together and make Planetarium, so
they did. They've done a lot better since. However, it should be worth noting as well, they've changed their company name. They're no longer Game Salute.
Oh, really?
They're now Starling Games.
Okay.
And they've still. There's a lot of people still don't like them. They've burnt a lot of people So
Yeah, I can see why. I mean, it's going to be that reputation's going to be difficult to get back, I think.
yeah.
When they've started now, I think the fact that it would appear that they've gone back to almost Billy Basic and gone, right, it's only a 30 or 40 quid game, and that's it, job done. I mean, they did it with Planetarium. There were stretch goals, but they were only small ones. The basic game was there, and then that was it. And then they've done the same with Farlight. Farlight probably wasn't quite as good as Planetarium, but again, it was only 30 or 40 quid. It wasn't a big game, and they delivered on time, to budget, all that sort of stuff. So I think if they keep doing that, they'll probably get a bit more reputation back. But I think they probably just literally, poor choice of words, but stretch themselves too far.
Snigger.
But I mean, I suppose are the stretch goals really necessary? No. It's obviously a marketing exercise more than anything else. I suppose add-ons are a different argument. And
yes,
if anyone,
add-ons are different, yeah.
Anyone complains about funding an add-on and then complaining they're too expensive can just right off because they're optional. If you buy an add-on and then complain about it, huh?
FOMO.
Well, yes, of course there is.
You say
But,
they're
I mean, you
optional,
can't
Andy,
complain
but for
about
some
that.
people they're not. Andy.
Shut up. Yeah, but I don't complain about it.
You do when you can't eat the following month.
Yeah.
I could do with losing a few stone. It's all right. Miniatures or food? Miniatures. But some people do complain. Oh no, the add-ons there, it's too expensive. Well, don't buy it then. It's an add-on, not a stretch goal. You know, that's the thing. But I suppose the flip side is that if you go for deliver quotes the best version of the game, if somebody did that, like for example, I mean Deep Madness, if somebody did deliver quotes the best version of that game, it would be £400. Like, I mean, look at Batman. Case in point. Best version of that game is $320. It's ridiculous.
I think it's about time to round it up, chaps. Thank you all very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you'd like to leave us a review on iTunes, we'd very much appreciate it. And
Only
don't
for
forget,
5 stars.
Only the 5-star button works, of course. If you want to chat to us, we are available on Twitter. I am, Hoffelmadenga.
Of course you are. The sound I make, I sneeze when I've got hay fever. I am at Sonic H with 0.
And I'm John_Cage.
We, as a group, are available at Polyhedron C. And to be fair, if you want us, actually, that's the first place to go because I'll direct it to one of the other two if need be.
That is true. You haven't even given me access to that account yet, Steve, so it is still basically you.
It is just basically me, and I was going to give access, but then it got hacked once.
Oh, really?
And
Andy.
so now I'm on 2-point verification, so if I wanted to give you access, I'd have to send you a text every time you wanted access.
Oh.
Which
Screw
sounds
that.
like a complete ball ache, to be fair, so...
Yeah. Never mind.
It got hacked via Pinterest.
How weird.
That sounds like the softest hack ever. You've just been hacked basically by a plushie.
I honestly, I linked the Twitter account to the Pinterest account so that if anyone, and I was going to share the Pinterest data, so if anyone clicked, and what I tried to do is put the photographs from some of the photographs we play and some of the review photographs onto Pinterest, they would then instantly appear on the Twitter feed. And then one day I found out that they hadn't hacked Pinterest, but they had hacked Twitter via the Pinterest account. Still don't know how they did it, but
How bizarre.
Interesting.
I got on top of it within about half an hour. So basically, just somebody got on there and just started spamming, the usual bollocks about Oakley glasses.
Ooh, Oakleys.
That reminds me, actually, I need new shades. A new set of Oakleys would go down well. Their marketing strategy has clearly worked.
Yes, only a £5. Genuine.
On the scale.
Yeah, a genuine fake.
Yes.
Oakleys.
Oh god, I'm not kidding. I've been to China, and the amount of stuff like that is ridiculous. All the shops had iPhones in them, spelt EYE.
That sounds like something from Grand Theft Auto.
It does.
Yeah.
It's just like that. It's like I'm not kidding. I went past a Nike shop. It was a Nike shop, and I, at first glance, didn't spot it until someone else pointed out to me, look at the logo. And you got the Nike swoosh.
Yeah.
It was the swoosh with a tail on the end. Just the slightest curve. It's like.
Hang on a minute. Very good.
Anyway, if you'd like to talk nonsense with us, we're also available on Facebook and on the Board Game Geek Guild 2726.
Nice.
But
Does
for now,
anyone ever go on there?
well, do you ever go on there?
No.
Phil the Sheep is about the only person who ever posts anything on there.
Go Phil! Yes!
I go on
We need
there
to get
when
him
you...
some like pom-poms.
We should do polyhedron pom-poms. I go on there when Steve points out there's been some post that sounds interesting. So
Isn't that just Board Game Geek in general, though?
yeah, about once every 6 months or so.
I've got to admit, I use Board Game Geek less than I used to.
I've not been on in ages.
I don't know what it is. I think because the Facebook groups are now getting busier and more focused. Is that the word I'm looking for? Anyway.
Defocused, actually. Jesus, yeah. It basically fills up about 80% of my Facebook feed these days.
Yes. And I left about 20 groups the other week.
It knows what you like.
It does, but it's like, oh, well, my friends don't seem to post much anymore. It's just swamped in board game horseshit.
Anyway, it's time for us to go.
It is.
So, tatty bye.
I love the way you waved there, Steve. You know, the audience is totally going to see that. Tit.
Getting into character.
What, you play a wanker really well.
The audience can't see this, either.
That's much more appropriate.
Ah, the middle digit. I am Andy. Was Andy. Still am Andy. Probably will be tomorrow.
And I've been John.
Do I have to say goodbye now?
No.
Oh. It's just going to fade like the Sopranos at the end.
I'm just going to fade out there, yeah.
Just bang, click. Sopranos ending. Black screen.